For the Texas real estate exam, you must master the specifics of buyer representation agreements. Let's start with the crucial distinction between exclusive and non-exclusive agreements. An exclusive right to represent agreement is a favorite on the exam. It means the buyer's broker gets paid if the buyer purchases a property during the term, regardless of who found it. An exam question might describe a buyer with an exclusive agreement who finds a for-sale-by-owner home on their own. In this scenario, the broker is still owed a commission. In contrast, a non-exclusive agreement, sometimes called an open agency agreement, allows the buyer to work with multiple brokers. Only the broker who is the procuring cause of the sale earns the commission. The exam will test this by asking which agreement permits a buyer to use several agents at once. The answer is a non-exclusive agreement. Under Texas law, to be enforceable and to allow an agent to sue for a commission, the buyer representation agreement must be in writing and signed by the buyer. The exam will absolutely test you on the required elements. A key requirement is a definite termination date. An agreement that says it ends when the buyer finds a house is invalid. It needs a specific calendar date. The agreement must also clearly state the compensation terms. It should specify that the broker will first try to get paid from the seller or listing broker. And it must detail what happens if that amount is less than the agreed-upon commission, which could make the buyer responsible for the difference. The exam loves to create scenarios around this compensation structure. Termination of these agreements is another exam hotspot. While they end upon the specified termination date or when the purpose is fulfilled, a buyer cannot simply walk away without cause. Termination generally requires written notice, and if a buyer terminates without cause, they could still be liable for the agent's commission. TREC does not have the authority to force a broker to release a client from an agreement. It is a binding contract. Now, let's focus on the protection period, also known as a safety clause. This is a critical concept for the exam. This clause protects the agent's commission for a specified time after the agreement terminates. If the buyer purchases a property during this period that the agent introduced to them, the agent is still owed a commission. A common exam trap involves the agent's duties here. For the protection clause to be enforceable, the agent must typically provide the buyer with a written list of the properties they were shown shortly after the agreement ends. If the agent fails to send that list, they may forfeit their commission, even if the buyer purchases one of those properties. Another key point is that the protection period is often voided if the buyer signs a new exclusive representation agreement with another broker. To remember the core components of how buyer agency is established in Texas, use this phrase: in Texas, get it in writing to get paid. While agency can be implied through actions, the Texas Real Estate License Act is clear that a written agreement is required to enforce commission payment. The exam will present situations where an agent performs services without a signed agreement and ask about their right to compensation. The answer will always be that without a written and signed agreement, the broker cannot sue for the commission. For free practice questions, AI-powered explanations, and more exam prep tools, visit openexamprep.com. That's openexamprep, all one word, .com.